Welcome to Everywhere with CRE2, a new podcast produced by the Center for the Study of Race, Ethnicity, and Equity at Washington University in St. Louis. In each episode, we'll delve into path-breaking research, innovative learning opportunities, and strategic engagement to better understand how race and ethnicity are integral to the most complex and challenging issues of our past and present. I'm Tila, Neguse, and I'm the Associate Director at CRE2. And today my co-host is Solome Haile.
Hi everyone, I'm Solome and I'm a Research and Project Assistant with the Center.
The two of us have the pleasure of hosting this conversation today. This episode is actually the first of a two-part series featuring our inaugural cohort of CRE2 Graduate Fellows. So each year, CRE2 names a select group of admitted students who are interested in the study of race and ethnicity. And today we're joined by three of our six fellows, Dennis Boyd, Paige DeVos, and Nadia Fitch. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So to begin our conversation, I'd love if each of you could just share a little bit about yourselves. So why don't we start by, introducing yourselves, sharing your name, the program you're in, where you're from, and maybe what you've enjoyed the most about St. Louis. So why don't we start with Dennis?
Hi, my name is Dennis William Boyd Jr. I am currently a graduate student at the Brown School of Social Work, and I am originally from Flushing, New York, which is in Queens. And what I've enjoyed about St. Louis coming out of a big city is being able to, how quaint the city is, that you can get around and how accessible things are.
Definitely quaint compared to Flushing, right? All right. How about Paige?
Hi, everyone. My name is Paige DeVos. I am a PhD student in the anthropology department, working with Dr. Helena Voldekiros. I am originally from Mays Landing, New Jersey, which is near Atlantic City, if people know that name. And my favorite thing about St. Louis is how many parks there are. And there's some really nice hiking nearby, like Lone Elk Park I went to and Castlewood Park. And I love being outdoors, so that's great. And it just also reminds me of Philadelphia a little, which is nice because that's the city I'm most familiar with.
That's so funny you say that because I always tell people that. I'm like, St. Louis reminds me a lot of like a Midwestern Philadelphia. Like, obviously, we don't have trains that could take us to New York and DC in an instant, but Philadelphia is like definitely got some St. Louis blood in it. So, Nadia.
Hi, my name is Nadia Jackson-Fitch, and I am a first-year PhD student in the sociology department. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma, home of University of Oklahoma. And I think what I've enjoyed most about St. Louis is things are very cheap, often free, easily accessible, really culturally diverse.
Yeah, St. Louis is such a great city to be in, especially when you're young and a student, because it's so much more accessible than a lot of the other mid-sized cities. So I always appreciate that when I was an undergrad too. But thank you so much for sharing more about yourselves, and hopefully everyone got to see a bit more beyond just your identities as scholars. And now we'd love to hear more about your research interests in the study of race and ethnicity more broadly. And what are some of your particular research interests? Nadia, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so my research interests have kind of been all over the place. So race, the Black experience in America, body image, colorism have kind of been all at the forefront of that, but I recently nailed down specifically what I want to study, which is race in sports and the way that we perceive Black men and Black women in the sports, while also analyzing just the way we also perceive their bodies.
That's super interesting and super relevant. I feel like there's so much that you can say that traverses both the academy, but also public discourse. So it'd be exciting to see what you start finding as you do your research in that subject. How about you, Paige?
Yeah, so as an archaeologist, I kind of am interested in approaching race and identity and ethnicity from the historical perspective. In particular, I'm interested in pre-colonial and colonial West Africa and sort of the connection between foodways and cultural memory and how that can hopefully relate to broader transatlantic studies in terms of continuation in foodways. There's a really excellent book that kind of does this called Black Rice by Judith Carney. It kind of takes that transatlantic approach, but I'm studying animals rather than crops.
That sounds really interesting. I wonder, are you planning on doing some like field work where you actually go to those sites to do your research?
Yes, hopefully. COVID has made lots of fieldwork very up in the air, but I am hoping to be able to go over and do some excavations in West Africa. And I will be looking at a collection from Benin that's in the United States this summer, so that's very exciting.
That is exciting. Thank you for sharing that. And Dennis, how about you?
So my research is centered primarily around Black families, and my core focus and my primary interest at this juncture is the mother-son relationship. It's a relationship that I've lived. It's a relationship that I've worked with and seen. It's very nuanced, complex, and complicated when we talk about race and families in America, and how that plays out in the dynamic and the tension at times in the mother-son relationship. My other interests include youth and families, adolescent development, education, K through 12 policy, especially policy that is focused on exclusionary practices because it tends to impact Black and Latino young men the most. So that's an interest. Juvenile justice, and another real something I'm really passionate about is designing interventions for participatory research to do work in communities.
Thank you all for sharing. You all are doing such like different and exciting things. So one of the benefits of being a CRE2 Graduate Fellow is that you can join this burgeoning community of scholars that we have. And so I'm curious to know, like, what have you enjoyed about being a part of the CRE2 community? And why don't we start with you, Paige?
Yeah, well, everyone in the CRE2 community has been very nice and welcoming, and everyone seems to be amazing scholars, including everyone in the cohort. And I'm excited to see what everyone does. And I just appreciate being able to be part of the center and to access the center's resources, and also how the center is encouraging me to think about how to make my work more relevant to sort of the themes that the center is interested, and also to like present day conversations.
So what I've enjoyed is just how I feel inspired by my colleagues. Just when I hear the work that they're doing, it inspires me. It sparks me to think in ways that are different. Hearing different viewpoints and what other scholars are doing in different fields is always helpful to help provide yourself with an alternative view in terms of how we think. The other thing that I have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy is the information and training and the exposure, like what is scheduled for us for the rest of the semester. I'm literally looking forward to those things. And the final thing for me is just the investment that the center is willing to make. And that's important to me because as a scholar, you can easily get caught trying to do things in isolation off on your own, and having a center that is committed to helping me grow as a scholar along with my colleagues, but most importantly, to bring those ideas to life. That is huge and important for me, and one of the things that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think for me also is just being able to hear what everybody's research interests are and be able to discuss that. I think especially from, the perspective of, race and racism in the United States. And I think also what's most important for me is just kind of this interdisciplinary work and being able to understand like how race manifests in different fields. That's definitely my favorite part about CRE. And then, access to funding opportunities and being able to talk with faculty fellows as well.
I'm so glad that you all have really been able to get plugged into the different opportunities that we have at the center and that you're enjoying your experience so far. And the great thing is that your fellowship is something that really stays with you throughout your experience. So we're excited to continue to see you all grow into the scholars that you all are and hope to be. And now, as we close, we want to give some space for you all to plug any projects you might be working on now, or are excited to get started shortly. This could be anything ranging from op-eds that you hope to write to more robust research studies that you are conducting or will be conducting soon.
Currently, I am working on the homegrown life coach study where Dr. Sean Joe is the PI. And this is a random controlled trial study that's examining the outcomes of Black youth in the St. Louis region with a homegrown life coach and the outcomes. So I'm enjoying that. The exposure has been phenomenal. I've also had the opportunity to work on a Black fatherhood study where I actually had the opportunity to work side by side with Dr. Sean Joe on this particular project. And in this particular project, what we did was we conducted 3 focus groups with 4 cohorts of fathers here in the St. Louis region. And what we're doing is we're norming a multi-family group intervention for it to be used here in the St. Louis region and ultimately scale to be used throughout the country. And lastly, which is my hobby horse and my labor of love project right now, is I'm working on a piece that's going to center Black mothers, but Black mothers with sons specifically, because that relationship is very complex and it's very complicated. And one of the things that is important to me is that Black mothers be seen and that there's compassion and empathy, because being a Black mother with an adolescent son has to be difficult. So I'm a Black mother who's at work. I experience sexism. I experience racism. I have a Black son, and every time I turn around, I'm seeing Black men killed in the media. So I'm concerned in the fear and anxiety I have for my son. So I want to use this piece to elevate and center Black mothers for their strength, but more importantly, to show the world as we see them that we should be empathetic and compassionate towards them and look for ways that we can continue to support them rather than the emphasis on the controlled image of Black mothers in the media. So that's what this piece is working towards.
All of that sounds so exciting. And your last remark reminded me of Patricia Hill Collins' work around controlling images. So it'll be interesting to see how you work that into your piece. Nadia, I'd love to hear from you about what you're working on right now.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you mentioned Patricia Hill Collins because that book, Black Sexual Politics, is what inspired me to go into race and sports. But for what I'm working on right now, I just finished my first book review for Grotesque Touch by Amy King, which examines how violence between women in contemporary Caribbean and American contexts is rooted in slavery. And then I am on a project with my research mentor, who also happens to be a faculty fellow, Ariella Schachter. It's a fear project, so it studies the kind of like the fear surrounding deportation for Asian and Latinx immigrants. And specifically what I'm looking at is how experiences of discrimination, police contact, ICE contact for Asian and Latinx immigrants relates and links back to Black Americans. So kind of like a cross-racial linked fate measure.
That sounds super, super relevant considering the perpetual crises we have at our various borders. So I'm excited to see what comes of that. And I think that it really would have a lot of applications even beyond just one publication, that it'll definitely be something that's well cited once you complete it. So that's super exciting. And Paige?
Both of your research plans sound really exciting, and I'm really excited to see, that published or final results. At the moment, I am going to present and attempt to get published some research I did as an undergrad, which was stable isotope analysis, very scientific thing, at Geno in Mali, which is a very unique and interesting site. It's one of the earliest sub-Saharan urban centers, and what I was looking at was both people's diets there in terms of what they were eating and also mobility. And I think this kind of research in Africa looking at urban centers is really important because it demonstrates the way what urban centers look like is different. It's not just all what we think of as like Western European monumental urban centers. There can be urban centers that are non-hierarchical, that don't have monumental architecture. And one of the things I really think archaeology is well suited to do is to combat stereotypes about African culture and Black individuals in terms of both the idea that